Welcome, everybody, back to Into the Valley of Phoenix Suns podcast. I am Ethan Shutt, joined by Ryan Shutt and Philip Russell. Guys, we took a healthy hiatus. Lots of change since our last episode. Now, some folks thought we might have passed away. We had a few folks in the YouTube comment section quite confused in our disappearance, but I thought it was needed. We had some personal life changes. Ryan, you've been traveling to a new city for work, every 2 days, it seems?
Yeah, I think 4 out of the last 5 weeks I have not been home. So it's nice to be in my bed tonight. I'm very excited.
So Ryan's had a lot going on there. Philip, anything new going on in your life since we last recorded?
I made a baby.
Woo, baby. Well, I mean,
hold on, what?
All by
Ryan,
himself.
do you need an anatomy lesson on how it works?
Nah, I'm good, man.
No, all right, I'll talk to you later off pod.
So since our last episode, Philip and his wonderful wife are now expecting. So as we progress through the season and keep up with the standings and the growth of the team, we will also be checking on the growth of a small baby, which we're all super pumped to add to the. Let's be real, that baby's probably going to grow up a Bulls fan, isn't she? That's okay. She'll have a tough upbringing, but you know what? We all go ahead. Talk about how good your Bulls look. I'll give you 30 seconds to get out of the way.
I don't need 30 seconds to talk about the Bulls. I'm a big poetry guy. Those of you who are listening into the podcast might not know. This podcast disappeared the last time. And when we disappeared, Phoenix had just lost the finals. We're reappearing after Phoenix lost the finals. So there's something poetic going on there.
Are we rising from the ashes, ladies and gentlemen?
We might be Go Sky, WNBA champs, gang.
Go Mercury.
Goodness. All right. Well, and then I think I've got a new job starting next week. So lots of changes between last episode and this episode. But as Philip alluded to, Ryan and I made the journey to Milwaukee to watch Game 3, aka when everything went wrong.
Yeah, and then everything collapsed.
Now, before you start accusing us of being a curse or a jinx to the team, just know there were lots of other Suns fans there as well. Let's blame them, please, if that's okay. But no, we're happy to be doing this. It's fun going into this season. Last season, starting the podcast was this new idea that kind of came up as the season started, as the three of us just kept talking about what was going on. This year, we've had the ability to kind of get excited and think ahead of what this season's going to look like, not just for the Suns, but for the podcast. But I want to go ahead and just start by saying, if you're listening and you were listening before, welcome back. If you're new here, welcome. We are three guys that enjoy talking basketball. We don't take ourselves too seriously. By no means a news source, no breaking news. We don't have sources anywhere, but we do.
Takes off mask and I'm flex.
Oh my goodness. What an awful, awful joke. And to start, we haven't even made it through 5 minutes of our first episode of season 2. And we've got Ryan making a Ryan. Go ahead and write that down for later use. But no, we're happy to have you here. Hopefully you stick with us as the season progresses. Our goal is to have one episode a week. So we're not going to hit you with too much. We also know there are so many great creators out there making Suns content right now. We don't want to get too muddied in there where you're having to give up too much of your time, but hopefully we can fit into your listening schedule on your drive, on your run, whatever have you. But guys, season starts in 24 hours? Is that right? How?
Probably less than at this point.
Here's what's so nuts to me is we're recording this on Monday night. It's been 10 years since the Suns had any playoff run, let alone one that lasted as long as it did. And when you add that playoff run going all the way to the finals, all the way to Game 6, mixed with COVID schedule, getting back on course, this offseason has felt non-existent, right? The finals ended and I felt I was boom, draft, boom, free agency, boom, contract extensions, get there momentarily. But it seems like it's not been that long at all. So let's just kind of recap what was a very quick, at least it felt for me. Not sure how you feel about it, but the offseason for the Suns, and Philip, I want to start with you. What's kind of the one big thing that really jumped out at you? And then maybe something small, something sneaky, maybe something that went under the radar that sticks out in terms of the Suns offseason.
The biggest thing for me is signing Mikal. I love Mikal. If you're new to this podcast, this is a Mikal Bridges stan account
True.
all the way around. I think all three of us love Mikal. His disposition and then obviously his approach. He is an exceptional basketball player, and he's one of the guys I'm expecting a big leap from. $90 million over 4 years for Mikal Bridges after what he did in the playoffs is great, especially when you think about the prospect of him growing over the course of that contract extension. So that's the first one that I really like. The one that might go, I don't know how under the radar this goes because he's a big name because of the teams he's been attached to in the last few years, but I really like the JaVale McGee signing. The reason being, last season, when you switched out Deandre Ayton for a Frank Kaminsky or a Dario Saric, there was a dramatic turn in the amount of athleticism that was on the floor, specifically at the 5 position. You went from the springy, mostly switchable 5 to Dario most of the time, who, God love him, you just don't want him switching out on pretty much anybody except another 4 or 5.
100%.
With JaVale coming in, what I love about him is that there can be some continuity between the way the first team and the second team is playing defense. And I think that's that's sneakily very good for when second team guards and wings are asked to play up with DA and Book and CP3. There will be more continuity just in the way that they're approaching defense this season between the first unit and the second unit.
No, I think that is a very good sneaky pick. And Mikal, obviously, part of the big news of this week was that contract that you're talking about. The Athletic had a great article. Sam Vicini, I think that's how you say his last name. Hopefully, he's never going to listen to this. So if I said it wrong, who cares? Great article titled "Mikal Bridges' Extension is Quite a Steal for the Suns." Let's break down why. And I love the Athletic. I will continue to give them my money. Don't want to give all the good stuff from it, but the end of it is, if you paid Mikal Bridges that much money for the Mikal Bridges you have right now, that's still going to be a good deal. And so it's literally an entire article talking about the Mikal Bridges that we have in the present and saying he is worth every bit of that money. We're not even going to see what he's going to become. And so, yeah, I think that's a home run pick. I love JaVale. I know you're a huge Warriors guy. Watch more Warriors than any friend I know during the peak of that dynasty. So having JaVale here is great. Ryan, want to go ahead and say for those watching on the YouTube channel and for those listening, if you ever want to put a face with a name, I don't know if you want to do that or not. You can always check us out on YouTube, Into the Valley, a Phoenix Suns podcast. The only real perk of it is Ryan will always have a beautiful topical on-brand background. And so if you're watching, you get to see the beauty that is creepily behind Ryan. For those listening, we've got a TMZ photo, I believe, of Ayton and Bobby Sarver.
I was there. So this is a photo of all of us. No, the backgrounds are the only thing I bring to this podcast. Let's be honest. I am just here for my backgrounds. But yes, this is the TMZ pic of the meeting that didn't go well 2 weeks ago. That led to the news that broke today, apparently, of no re-signing of DA. But yeah, that is
incredible.
I knew I had to start off this new season of the pod strong, so I couldn't resist bringing this photo in.
I love it. Well, obviously, I'm guessing what happened with Ayton today is not your highlight, but what is your one big thing for the offseason?
Mine is, and this might be a layup, I don't know, keeping Chris Paul. The fact that
was on my list, so it's
that we
totally
restructured
good.
That deal in such a way. I think James Jones and Sarver built the deal in such a way that's brilliant on the back end, especially. I just think getting him to buy in and getting these last few years of his career with Phoenix, with this team that he's obviously very excited about, to me, that's the big one. He took this team to a whole other level and allowed Booker to grow, allowed Mikal to grow, allowed Ayton to grow at times, and as the conversation has been from time to time, but I just think he makes us better. So that's my big one. My kind of follow-up to that, I'm really kind of excited about Landry Shamit in a weird way. And I think that's because I'm excited of what Monty sees in him. I don't know much about Landry outside of what I watched at Wichita. I haven't kept up with him too much in the NBA, but I don't think he gets this 4-year extension that he signed today without Monty seeing something in him of extreme value. And that to me is exciting. So with him and Elfrid Payton coming back, and as Philip mentioned already, JaVale McGee, I think some of these signings of these role players are great, but I'm really curious to see what Landry Shamit brings to the table this season. And I'm excited to see how soon that occurs.
No, I love both of those. Both of those were on my list. I think the Chris Paul re-signing, because it was so many things in the timeline ago, it's easy to kind of overlook that, yes, there was a moment where the collective Suns fans were unsure. I will say as well, if you are listening and are just looking for more material, feel free to follow someone on Twitter. It's at the 4-Point Play. 4 is IV. It is Roman numeral 4. He has a Substack, I guess, like a newsletter he puts out that is just like incredibly detailed and good, and you should be giving him money for this type of stuff. And he had an article come out, I think 3 days before free agency officially started, basically saying, hey people, this is what's going to happen with Chris Paul. Don't be shocked. And it was going over the length of the contract and the massive amount, and talking about the different tiers of how the money kind of trails off and how the options can be on the end. So I do remember getting that phone notification, Ryan, when we just saw Chris Paul signed for 4 years, $80 billion, you know what I mean? And it's just the sticker shock of, goodness, his grandkids are going to be playing on this contract type of thing. But like you said, it was very smart how it was put together. And Landry Shamit, I remember liking him in his college days as a big college basketball guy. Personality-wise, some of the stuff that Monty has been on record saying about him back in his Philly days, if I'm not mistaken, he said he'd be cool with Landry dating his daughter. I'm like,
he said Landry is the kind of guy he would like his daughter to marry. Essentially.
Yeah, like that is, I mean, that's official stamp of approval that no one else is going to be getting. So yeah, I'm curious, to see what comes of that. But for me, the big one, and this might be weird, I enjoyed seeing Booker's success in the Olympics. I enjoyed seeing him be on that pedestal of top guys in the league, getting that attention that he deserves. So I know that's a weird one, maybe, but I feel like you guys kind of took my 1 and 2, and Ayton's extension didn't happen, so we don't get to see what comes of that. And JaVale is my under the radar one as well. I think the JaVale signing is absolute genius. But talking about today, what happened, what didn't happen, Philip, share with the folks at home the Ayton situation from your perspective as not a Suns fan.
Deandre Ayton is a good basketball player. He had a great run in the playoffs, but I'm hesitant to say that he had a great 2020-2021 season in totality. There were times when Suns fans were really struggling with DA, times when he looked passive, times when he looked lost on defense. So to say he had a great year in total last year, that's a bit of a stretch. So you have a guy who had a good year, who showed improvement, especially on the defensive end, had a great run in the playoffs. And then that guy who has this mixed bag of a year, and really who has a mixed bag in his entire tenure on the Suns, is now saying the only contract he's going to sign is a max extension. And from an outside perspective, no, I'm good. I would be thrilled if he signed. He would, just by nature of being a higher draft pick, he would get a little bit more than Mikal got, but sign around $90 million, the max of like 120 over 4 or 150 over 5, which is the most I think that he could get would be too much from my vantage point.
So in Woj's article with Wendy today, actually, they were talking about what that deal could look like. And given that, and this is what it's being said here, it says Ayton, a key part of the Suns' run to the 2021 NBA Finals, held firm on winning a full 5-year max contract, which would have been worth a guaranteed $172.5 million plus possible escalators. And that part of that is being the number one overall pick. You get started on a certain grade and that's how it increases. I'm sorry. The amount of, and look, Suns Twitter today has been humorous, but also incredibly annoying with the stupidity that I'm seeing. Because if you can't take a step back and get a little bit better view and say, is there a little bit of recency bias being played into how we're viewing the situation? Absolutely. Right? Like, come on, let's be real. Someone detailed his first 3 seasons, and it was the season with Kokoskov, which was signs of good, but nothing incredible, right? Like year 1 ended with, wow, Luka was such a better pick than Ayton, right? That was the end of year 1. Year 2 is you get suspended for 25 games. You do end up playing well and looking like a better fit. Sprinkle in a little missed COVID test in the bubble. Why don't we? And then year 3, the way people are talking about Ayton from the playoffs was not the same person even in the regular season. Even though he did look good and he looked like he was developing, and defensively, to his credit, he absolutely made a massive step forward. But the recency bias for people to be like, oh, 5 years, $172 million? Absolutely. Like that's insane to me, legitimately.
I put this out on Twitter today. I made the same argument. I was like, you look at the suspension, you look at the failed COVID test and the maturity that speaks to, you look at his up and down performances. Sure, he had a good playoffs, but the only reason people are so upset about this is because Robert Sarver's involved. If this is another owner who makes this decision, everybody's cool with this and understands why he's not extending this offer to DA.
The only thing I'm going to add to that, and I think it plays a part, and I think part of this as well is we're Suns fans that aren't in Phoenix. We're not surrounded by it. We're not in the bubble as much as other people who have spent a lot of their lives and their families and friends' lives following this team. But if Ayton went number 2 and Luka went number 1, I think the conversation changes even more. Like if it wasn't this person that we have this internal need to validate in terms of the decision, right? Like the article is number 1 overall pick doesn't get extension. That's the story here. And you look at what Jaren Jackson Jr. got at 4 to the Grizzlies, and he's been plagued with injuries, still seems to have a high ceiling when he's on, and throw in everyone else in the mix, right? Like if you were able to get away from, even keep your recency bias, but get rid of all these external things that make you think someone deserves to be paid a quote max, which I think that system is stupid. If I showed you DeAndre Ayton's first 3 seasons in the league, and then I showed you that contract, you're insane to say the only way we keep him is he signs for that. Yes, because what you're doing is looking right now, and you're not even considering the ramifications for the future. Philip, what were you going to say there?
Yeah, so there are 2 things to add to that. One, if the message to DA is go out and prove it, show that you are the player from the playoffs who's not a perfect player. I mean, his man put up a 50-piece chicken nugget in game 6. So this is not some perfect 5 who can just lock down everybody on the defensive end. So go out and prove it. Be consistent throughout the first part of the season. Earn that contract. But then the second thing, and this is not a full-on Sarver defense, but the Suns already have $125 million on the books next season already, right now, today, without DA's contract. So like the dude is not pinching pennies, and getting DeAndre Ayton on the right contract is important organizationally because the tax that this team is going to pay over the next several seasons is also going to be obscene. It's going to be an obscene amount. So they're already shelling out money to Booker, to McHale, to CP3, and Ayton is the 4th component of that. But they need to get him on the right deal, not just any deal.
Yeah, the article goes on to say that the Suns brass actually, whether they formally made the offer or not, they were okay with the idea of max deal in terms of annual salary, but their issue was the 5 years. It said that they were discussing 4 or potentially even 3 years, still at that annualized money, that would be max money. But that makes sense, right? Like, the worst thing you can do is lock someone in long terms to destroy your books. I feel okay saying this one only because he's kind of redeeming his career, but think about Andrew Wiggins and how he was discussed within the league because of the money he was given when he never really deserved it. But when you're picked that point and you're getting your next deal, oh, well, yeah, you get the max, right? Like that's how it worked. And that's because the system doesn't have a real cap, which is a concern. And it also has this tier max system where it's, oh, because he was this pick, he warrants a contract up to this amount of money. I think that's so stupid. Like, if someone is worth this many years, this much money, that's what you should be able to pay them. And vice versa. You shouldn't have to pay this to someone that doesn't deserve it. And to close the Ayton rants and as we move towards the future, I do think there is one important part that everyone is forgetting. It's not that we didn't extend him and so the next year anyone can come get him, right? He's a restricted free agent. That means the Suns will still have the final say on anything. Teams can throw all the crap money in the world at him and the Suns can match it. So if Ayton goes out and does everything in the world to warrant that money, the Suns can give it to him next year, right? And here's my thing. He is trying to be more mature, claiming maturity. He's a dad now. That happened as well over the year. Like, prove it. Like, what's so wrong with telling someone to go prove it? Mikal Bridges has proved that he earned that money. Honestly, more than that money. Let's be real. There's nothing wrong with prove it, right? So I get the outrage. I get that people are like, you're going to burn a bridge. He's going to Ben Simmons his way out of here. Whatever. Ben Simmons is still chilling in Philly. He might be practicing in a hoodie and sweatpants, but he's there, right? Like, this isn't LeBron.
And here's the thing. The team that's built right now, guys like Book and CP3 and Mikal aren't going to let Ayton slack off because he's unhappy.
Well, and the other thing too,
you're going to get production from him this year.
Well, with how the team is built, and this is I would never put it on Twitter because I would just get massacred, right?
This is Styx's team now?
No.
I was close.
That would get me massacred. My thought is, let's say worst comes to worst, Ayton either farts around or he does well but not great, and the Suns say, all right, you can walk. Can you find someone or multiple someones for that much money that can fill the maybe multiple different things that he does at the same level and not possibly better? I don't know. Just throwing it out there. I also think it's interesting, and this is really trying to get into it. When I saw the news, did I think, oh man, Chris, Mikal, and Book must be pissed, man. Like, they must be so upset that Sarver didn't open the checkbook? I don't think so. I think they want him to be successful so that they can be successful. But at the end of the day, Chris Paul and Devin Booker are another breed of human that want to win at any cost. And if that means getting rid of the tall man from the Bahamas and putting that money to other good uses to win them a championship, I think that's all they care about. I mean, have you ever seen or felt no, they want this group intact and no one else? Like, do you get that from them at all?
I think the four, if we're talking about the closest four, is probably going to be Cam, Mikal, Chris, and Book. I think Ayton's on the bubble of that core. And if it meant losing one satellite to keep the core, then I think I wouldn't be surprised to see him shopped potentially if that's the case. I
think in value to the team, he is the clear number 3. Even though favoritism tells me how much I like Mikal and what he does. If you're talking about filling very needed definitive roles, the defensive anchor who can also produce at a high level on offense, I think he is the 3 behind Chris and Book in whatever order you want to put them in. But in terms of just how much this team gels together as one, I think you have Chris and Book here as a super tight duo, and you've got Mikal and Cam as another weird best friend who I love very much duo. And Ayton kind of seems like he's just kind of out there doing his own thing. And I don't think that helps in situations like this. Again, probably getting way too into it in terms of the external forces behind it. But anyway, this obviously was going to dominate the conversation today. This was the huge news in the league. But the one nice thing we can do now is say, hey, we know who's on our team. We know what they're making. The new season starts tomorrow. And with that, we are going to put on our psychic hats, our tinfoil, if you will, whatever you want to have. And instead of previewing player by player what we think we're going to see, we're going to look all the way to the end of this year. We're going to fast forward to the end of the season. The newspaper, which obviously no one actually reads nor pays for, comes out in Phoenix. There is a headline written across the top. End of the season headline, Philip. When it's all said and done, how is this year remembered?
A better team with worse results. I think the Suns are going to be better just by the eyesight, especially early on in the season. Suns got off to an okay start last year and then started dominating, especially after New Year's. They just went on an absolute tear, and it was January, February, where some of the net ratings for Suns players and the Suns as a team were out of this world. They were
laughable. Yeah.
Phenomenal. I don't know with the Suns' current makeup if I could sit here today and say I'm comfortable or even confident projecting them into the NBA Finals again. I am comfortable and confident in saying I think they're going to be better, and I think in the regular season they're going to be as formidable as anybody in the West. So this is almost anathema on Suns Twitter, but a similar vibe to the Jazz where I don't have any questions about the regular season. The only questions that I have will be come playoff time.
Yeah. No, unfortunately, the realistic part of me as a Suns fan definitely can see that happening. I can liken it to, this is a weird one. This is a Ethan only, no one else cares. I think about the Minnesota Vikings after the Minneapolis Miracle with Case Keenum, right? They bring in Kirk Cousins. They add all these extra pieces. They took this magic feeling that they had and said, we're going to revamp it, add some more talent and pieces where we need it. And we're just expecting to go and win this thing. That just doesn't always happen, right? Injuries can take place. Stuff internally can happen. Other teams can get better. There's other teams also figuring it out and growing. So no, I think that's definitely a possibility, Philip. Ryan, end of the season headline. What is this year going to look like?
It says CP leads Suns to Western Conference Finals, and it's Campaign and Monty celebrating getting to the Western Conference Finals.
You're the worst.
I was so proud.
I was so on a
proud
Campaign comment the whole time.
And in his offseason stuff, he did not mention Campaign's contract.
It's a misdirect,
19-ish over 3 years. He stayed silent. He waited. He held his Campaign card all the way to the end. Shout out to you, Ryan.
Earlier,
Shout
you
out
guys
to you.
said come up with a headline, and I've been sitting on this one all day.
Because I was so impressed, Ryan, for real, when it was like even the under the radar thing for the season, where it wasn't like, hey, Phoenix tricked Campaign into taking no money at all and then getting the team tatted on his leg. Like, wonderful work. But yeah, that is impressive that you managed to save it till the end.
But here's the thing. The joke is to say, I do think we'll probably make it back to the Western Conference Finals this year. I think we're good enough to do that. I don't know if we make it to the finals. I'm not confident enough to say how that'll go. But I do think we will finish one of the two best teams in the West. And from there, it's kind of a coin flip, I think.
All right, let's do a little trivia here before we get to mine as we wrap this up. What if you're looking at Vegas odds to win the NBA Finals? Where do the Suns rank, if you had to guess?
5th.
7.
So, Ryan, I guess he's just riding the wave of correctness. Suns are 5th.
Good vibes only, baby.
Nets 1, Lakers 2, Bucks 3, Warriors 4. Unsure. I think that's still nuts. And then Suns and Jazz have basically equal odds in that fifth and sixth spot, which I think is realistic. I unfortunately think the year-end exit is this is like asking for me to get in so much trouble. Where will Ayton be next? Big old question mark. I have had this feeling since early on with all the Karl Anthony Towns rumor talk and whatever you have and all of this disgruntled player stuff. I just can't tell if he actually wants to be here or if he just wants to make a crap ton of money and have a fun NBA career. Real Dwight Howardy, if you will. I'm getting Dwight Howard vibes. Early success in his career, ends up just getting money, chasing the bag wherever it goes, and we'll end up having a great year. But after this year, it's who's going to throw a max at Deandre Ayton because the Suns aren't going to. We shall see. But I think even in our conversations, we feel like we value 3, if not 4 players ahead of Ayton in terms of general potential within Phoenix. I'm guessing James Jones and Monty probably had a say in the conversations. And I don't think this was a Sarver only, no thanks, can't give you that much. After all the goodwill that I feel like James Jones has brought within, today on Twitter reminded me of the last couple drafts where everyone is just saying, how on earth have we done this? This is nuts. This makes no sense, blah, blah, blah. My team's coming off a trip to the NBA Finals. I'm going to trust the leadership. We'll see what comes from it. Philip, what you got before we wrap up?
Just to piggyback off the draft talk, in situations like this where it's unclear what the thinking is from the leadership or unclear what their motives are exactly, I think it was back-to-back years. You have 2 good case studies. Is this Jalen Smith or is this Cam Johnson?
Yep.
And you have one that I think is set to work out incredibly. I think Cam's set for a breakout year because he's the kind of guy who just consistently shows you like there's more in his bag than he gets to show because he's comfortable playing within the system. He's comfortable playing within the roles that he's asked to play in. And that's a big question now with this tension between the front office and DA. Can Monty get DA back into a mindset of playing a specific role, even if that means he doesn't get to flash all the things that he can do?
Yep. Yeah, I think you're right, and I think there's a lot to look forward to. Like I said, it's absolutely crazy, but the season starts tomorrow. The Suns play Wednesday, October 20th, 9 p.m. against the Denver Nuggets on ESPN. So hopefully if you're listening, you'll be able to watch as well. And that's 9 p.m. Central. Sorry, we're stuck here in the middle of the U.S. But guys, it is wonderful to get this back up and running. If you're listening on a podcast platform, if you're watching on YouTube, feel free to give us a like, hop in the comments and say hello. I think when we get YouTube comments, it's like the highlight of our podcast week. So hopefully we'll see you guys. Hopefully some folks are coming back. But for Ryan and Philip, I'm Ethan. This is Into the Valley of Phoenix Suns podcast.
We out.